Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to this candidates forum for County Legislator and Yonkers City Council President. I'm Susan Maggiato, President of the Rivertowns League of Women Voters. This session is being offered in English with a Spanish translation. I'd like to introduce our translator, Carlos Diaz de Leon. Carlos?
Thank you, Susan. I will now provide the instructions in Spanish for our Spanish listeners for interpretation. Muy buenas tardes. Se está ofreciendo servicio de interpretación simultánea para este foro. Para hacer uso del mismo, por favor desplácese a la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen sus controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, parece un globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom en celular, tableta, etc., presione primero los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Por último, si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Gracias, and thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Carlos. This forum will be offered in two parts. In the first hour, we will hear the candidates for Westchester County Legislative 15th District. And in the second part, we will hear from the candidates for Yonkers City Council President. I'd like to say just a few words about the League of Women Voters. The League was founded in 1920, the same year that women were finally able to vote. So for the past 101 years, the League has been a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and we influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose political parties or candidates, and membership is open to all persons 16 years of age or older. A word about our recording policy, which all the candidates have agreed to. Only the entities authorized by the League of Women Voters may record or live stream this forum. Any authorized use of the recording requires the advance approval of the League. Only licensed media, which includes TV, radio, and newspapers, are entitled under FCC regulations to air portions of the recording. Anyone else who broadcasts or streams it must do so in its entirety. Finally, this forum is being recorded in both English and Spanish and will be available for viewing. There will be links on the Rivertowns League of Women Voters website and Facebook page to the locations on YouTube. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to our moderator, John Hessel. John is a resident of New Rochelle and a member of the board of the League of Women Voters of New Rochelle. John? You need to unmute.
Thank you so much. Okay, welcome everyone to the League of Women Voters Forum for both the County Legislator 15th District and the Yonkers City Council President. I'm not a member of this community. I'm with the League of Women Voters. We're nonpartisan. We're here this evening to hear the candidates' views concerning this community, and it's important that we give each candidate the opportunity to make the best use of their time allotted. The ground rules for this evening's event are: one, we have flipped a coin for the candidate's order of speaking. Throughout this debate, then I will rotate the candidates as they answer their questions. For all the statements by the candidates, we have a timekeeper, and she is going to hold up a 30 seconds remaining sign and a stop sign when time is up. When the stop sign is up, you can finish your sentence, and then that's about it. Okay. Throughout the debate, no comments of a personal or abusive nature will be permitted. Each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes for their opening statement. We have collected audience questions through a form and also through email, and they've been gone through by the League of Women Voters. For each question, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Each question is designed so that the candidate is not directed at each candidate, but it's directed at both the candidates. Each candidate will also have two 30-second rebuttals during the forum. They cannot rebut the opening or closing statements. If it is in the moderator's discretion, if there isn't a personal attack, that I can also offer an additional rebuttal. At the end of each question period, the candidate will give 1.5-minute closing statement, and it'll be in the same order as the opening statement. Now, let me introduce your candidates for Westchester County Legislator, 15th District. We have Ms. Ruth Walter and Mr. James Nolan. And for the Yonkers City Council President, we have Mr. Ron Matten and Ms. Lakeisha Collins Bellamy. And we are going to start with the Legislative 15th District. So Mr. Matten and Ms. Bellamy, thank you very much, and we'll see you in about an hour. Okay, now we flipped a coin for the opening statements, and Ms. Walter, you're going to have the first opening statement, and then Mr. Nolan, you will have the second opening statement. And whenever you're ready, Ms. Walter, you can begin.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you, Susan. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in this evening. My name is Ruth Walter. I'm the Westchester County Legislator for District 15, and I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to discuss the issues that are most important to my constituents and to the people of Yonkers and Bronxville. I took office in 2020, and right after we had the shutdown for COVID. And during this time, I have been able to bring science-based information to my constituents regarding mask wearing and the vaccinations when they were available, testing at Glen Island. You know, community health is a part of the county government, and I think we performed excellently. We are coming out of COVID. Hopefully this fall does not see a great spike. And what we really want to do is build our economy back. We want our kids to be in school. I am the Health and Environment Chair, and I have been honored to be a part of this administration government and to be responsive to COVID and to really bring people together. We have a fantastic government at the county level, and I am really glad to be one of 17 legislators on the board and to really help my constituents get through COVID and also get back to their lives. I'm really looking forward to tonight, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nolan.
All right, well, thank you for having me. Thank you, Ruth, for joining tonight. It's a pleasure. I am running for District 15 to represent Yonkers and Bronxville. A little bit about myself. I am an activist in the community. I've done a lot in the community these past 6 years. I have done a lot of work on illegal gun violence. I have advocated and had over 30 scholarships provided to young public schools after my brother's passing. I've also worked on statewide legislation to help protect people regarding an illegal gun buyback program, which we had passed in 2019. I also had drag racing law passed in 8 other cities, which I'm very proud of and has been very effective. Last year alone, I was a frontline worker, and I'm proud of it. I'm a union member, and I look forward to doing what I can to help everybody. But last year alone, I really picked it up a lot. I did 60 food and PPE drives in the community for frontline workers, seniors, homeless, whoever I could. And I'm going to continue to do that. I provided over 4,500 blankets, and I'm going to continue being an advocate for the city of Yonkers, Bronxville, Westchester, New York. That's why I'm here. I want to run for be a public servant, not a politician. I love what I do, and I love working in the community.
Hello.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nolan. Okay, so now here's the first question, and Mr. Nolan, you're going to get the answer. Somebody's got a phone going in the background there. Here's the first question, and this is going to start with you, Mr. Nolan. What in your background and what unique qualities and expertise do you hold that make you suited for the office of county legislature? Mr. Nolan, you have 1.5 minutes.
Well, like I said, I've on a public figure stage in the private sector. I've worked to have legislation passed on a statewide level, multiple municipalities. I've advocated for quite a lot. As a union member, I've been in complete works with unions on what I could do to help and be a part of bringing union rights. I have served seniors. I have served the homeless. I have a loud voice. If you know me, you know that I don't give up until I get, what is needed for everybody. I literally started a nonprofit organization from the bottom up. It's been very successful. And I love being a people's person. I try to find as many solutions as possible. The police, I've worked with them closely on different things, providing resources for them and for the community. And, I'm a hard worker. I'm gonna continue to be a hard worker. I was the guy that used to sit on the compound bucket and do ceilings. I know what it's like to work in labor. I've worked in the law sector, providing laws to help protect people. I am all in, and I'm going to continue to be in. You're muted.
Sure, I got you. I keep hitting with my mouse. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Ms. Walter, same question to you.
You. So my background is I'm a small business owner. My husband and I opened a cheese store in Bronxville 11 years ago. We've employed over 100 people, giving many of them that important first job. Young people really need to experience what it's like to show up on time and to clean the counters, sweep the floor, make change, and of course, learn this multi-billion-dollar multinational business, which is the cheese that primarily we sell. But in addition to that, I have been active in my community. I'm the former court clerk in the village justice court. I work closely with the two judges and the police, and I understand what it's like to have laws that are sometimes difficult to enforce. And that has been really important for me as a legislator to be careful when we are passing laws that they are able to be enforced. Right now, there's a law on the books that you may not modify your muffler, but since I've been going to police precincts for over 5 years now, they are people, it's very difficult to enforce. So that's why I proposed the noise camera in order to allow the actual lawbreakers to be fined by giving them a ticket when they exceed a decibel level. So these are the experiences that I bring as a legislator. I'm also the former president of my local library, and I know how a board works. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, this one's going to start with you, Ms. Walter. This question is for both of you, but it's kind of broken up for both of you. Ms. Walter, what committees do you chair and serve on, and what are their responsibilities? And then for Mr. Nolan, what committees would you like to serve on? So Ms. Walter, you go first, and then Mr. Nolan.
So thank you so much. So I started as the chair of the appointments committee, but because of former legislator Lyndon Williams' elevation to the bench, I became the chair of the Environment and Health Committee. And the environment is one of the big reasons that I ran for office, especially it's the #1 issue for young voters. It really is a concern to them, climate change and how we can make things better for the planet. And so I'm delighted as of late September 2020 to be the Environment and Health Chair. I also serve as a member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, the Public Works and Transportation Committee, the Planning, Economic Development, and Energy Committee. And I am delighted to have almost 100% attendance. That was one of my campaign promises, that Ruth would show up, and I have. I would compare it to my predecessor, but I'm not running against him. I'll just say that, one of the reasons that I really want to be in office is to continue to do excellent work for the people that live in District 15, and really to work with my colleagues on the board in order to find solutions that people are asking for. People want things to work well in Westchester County, and we do work together. We work well together. And it's important that we notice that when things are going well, it isn't by magic, it's by hard work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Nolan, what committees would you like to serve on?
I would like to serve on the labor board. It's time for the unions to actually have a voice that has been very vocal, and I'm going to continue to be vocal. I'm a labor member, and I have quite a bit of insight to what labor really needs. I look forward to being on that committee. I would like to be on the Public Safety Committee. Like I said, I have a number of police unions and correctional unions, and I've also had laws passed to help protect people. That is something I'm looking forward to as well. Transportation is definitely something I want to be involved in. I have had like I said, a law passed in 8 different municipalities, and it's been very effective. You know, Yonkers Police, White Plains, Greenberg, they've all passed my law to help protect people from against illegal drag racing and other noise nuisance. And I look forward to working on that, and I would like to join the budget committee. You know, there's quite a bit of money that we should be allocating for in different parts, like infrastructure, that is definitely needed, especially if the last storm it showed. Those are committees that I'm interested in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nolan. Okay, so this one goes to you, Mr. Nolan, and of course then Ms. Walter. For Ms. Walter, what legislation have you proposed? And for Mr. Nolan, what legislation do you plan to introduce possibly in your first 100 days? So Mr. Nolan, you're going to take that question first.
Well, I would like to look into whatever we can to help provide extra funding. That also begins with the budget that we have on hand. I would like to create an inspector general's position to look through all oversight transactions through the county and also municipalities. Instead of raising taxes, we can look into what we have and where we can better spend it. I would like to also see about developers coming in again, instead of raising taxes, and if they want tax breaks, what we should do is give them a tax break, but under the condition that they're going to donate a percentage of money to the municipality, go to repaving roads, infrastructure, park, programs for kids, seniors, homeless, and then that money would be used, and it would cost a lot less to do that instead of paying taxes. So those are things I'm interested in. Like I said, these are things that I'm not experiencing right now, but I'm looking forward to working with. I have always worked hard, and I continue to work hard. I will work with other committee members to see what laws we can do to make Westchester even better.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nolan. Ms. Walter?
Thank you. So this legislative session has been, I would say, primarily concerned with the health and the economy of Westchester County. So for laws, particularly this session, we've done the police reform and reimagining task force. We've passed that. We also passed ethics reform, and we very particularly looked at the delivery fees that are being charged by places like Uber Eats. During COVID, they were as high as 30%, and we capped them when there was an emergency like COVID. But you know, what we're looking at is how to keep people safe, how to keep people healthy, and how do we make the economy of Westchester County bounce back as quickly as possible. So for my second term, I'd be very interested in making more education and more laws about the environment. Things like a 5-cent paper bag fee, which in concert with the plastic bag ban will actually change behavior. It's a modest amount of money, but it's been shown that people will then switch to these reusable bags, and our economy and our health of our economy and our environment will be improved. I proposed $750,000 in bottle refill stations that will reduce our reliance on single-use water bottles. And I'm very proud to have put that in place, and we are going to be seeing that next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, here's the next question, and it's going to start with you, Ms. Walter. Regarding the county-owned property Scout Field, there are several stakeholders with different interests. How would you work to resolve the various conflicts that are in play? Ms. Walter.
Thank you for that question. So Scout Field is one of those places that is extremely beloved by so many of my my constituents, so many of my neighbors. People love to walk down there. They love to run. There's a little loop that you can run. It's also an extremely sensitive environmental area. The students at Bronxville High School go and take samples out of the water. We want to make sure that all students have access to that, including Yonkers students, to come over. The park is actually located in Yonkers and Mount Vernon, and we have some, competing interests, I'll say. The previous county executive signed an IMA with the town of Eastchester, and it has been a little bit contentious. I think that's the easy way to put it. But I work with my colleague David Tubiolo, and also with newly elected Tyree Woodson Samuels, and we're trying to come to make everybody feel like they have something to gain from the park. The county executive has done a tremendous job at making the park more beautiful. If you walk down there right now, and I'll just say before I run out of time, the flooding in Longvale can be directly attributed to the lack of access to floodplains. So we really need to look at floodplains. This is part of a bigger conversation. I hope we get back to it in a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Walter. Mr. Nolan.
Well, I would like to address the issue with the best solution. We could bring together whatever elected officials we have. We could hear their concerns and what they feel that could be put into Scout Field. I do know it's a beautiful park. I've been there a few times myself. That is something that, what we should listen to the people with also and see what they want to do. But if it's something that we can keep the same or upgrade in some features, we should also look into that, because every park, is a beautiful in its own way. We should continue to keep it that way. Should construct it in a way that the people are going to better use it. So I think that's something that we should go forward on and do what we can to help make the people happy. They don't like, it being turned into something, or if they want it to be turned, that we should find the middle ground and try and come up with the best solution for the taxpayers and the residents.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nolan. Okay, so this next question is going to start with you, Mr. Nolan. And this subject was just brought up. Flooding in Lower Westchester is getting worse as major storms become more frequent. Some of this is a result of Upper County construction and possibly climate change. But what can be done now to prevent more catastrophic misfortune to our local residents? Mr. Nolan?
I do know for years now that it's just been such a talking point, but limited action behind it. The Army engineers have been brought in to come up with a plan to dredge the Bronx River in the spring. And that is something we should actually move forward with. I know the federal government is going to be coming down with the infrastructure money. It's time to put that to use. We should really bring in the engineers once again to get a plan in motion instead of just being a talking point and saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We should put it in place. This is Ira was just an eye-opening situation that's going to show if we have another storm that's even worse, how much worse it's actually going to be. So this is something that we need to really work on and bring in who we have to, whatever companies we have to get this situation addressed, because these neighborhoods can no longer go through the flooding. We have to find a way to take that water and turn it into, something that's not a catastrophic anymore. We have to adjust with our times. The infrastructure is failing, and it's time it needs to be addressed. Like I said, I've worked in labor, I've done construction, I've seen what it takes, and the infrastructure needs to be addressed the right way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nolan. Ms. Walter, same question.
Thank you. When I ran in 2019, one of my issues was flooding, and people were saying, why is flooding an issue? There's a study after Superstorm Sandy called New York Rising, and I was given a copy when I became a legislator, and it identifies two of the most dangerous flood risk areas in Yonkers as Longvale and Brooklands. And so when I first got into office, I said, what are we doing for the Bronx River and the Bronx River Sprainbrook confluence? And I went to a meeting with a lot of planners, and we sat around and we talked about the Bronx River Watershed Report, which anybody can look up. And then after that was done, I asked the county planners, what are the action plans? And I advocated for a study, a hydrology study, to give us information about what we can do about flooding in this area. There's also flooding on the Sawmill River Parkway. This is a major catastrophe. It's probably going to happen again until we can find a solution. And the solutions can be bioswales, they can be rain barrels, they can be more and cleaner culverts that we need to look at. And hydrology experts, I am proud to have put this hydrology study into the capital projects, and we are going to make things better, but only if we pay attention. And this is a huge change from my predecessor and the sort of nothing can be changed attitude of some on the other party. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, here's the next question, and it's going to start with you, Ms. Walter. Do you think Westchester County needs more affordable housing? And if so, how could this be implemented? If not, what can be done to help those who cannot afford the high cost of housing in this county?
Thank you for that question. Absolutely. We just saw the county executive's budget for 2022, the capital project. It's going to have $25 million in the land home acquisition fund. And what we've seen in West Hab in Yonkers is a beautiful facility that's supportive. Formerly homeless families will be able to live in a beautiful home. And we need, I think the housing needs assessment said we need 7,000 units of affordable housing in order to keep our economy strong and people who are on the middle and lower income safely housed in this county. It's a matter of economic strength as well as equity. And I think what we're seeing, we just passed another bond issue for affordable housing in New Rochelle. We have seen many smart and active developers coming to the county asking for help to purchase the land, and then they can build. We need to be a partner to private developers who are finding these sites and making this happen. I'm very proud to be on this board. We have done a tremendous amount already, and we will continue in 2022. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nolan?
I agree there needs to be more, especially with the growth of Yonkers. We're now the third biggest city in New York State. So we need to make sure that we have the right capital for it instead of, just relying on raising taxes. We have to make sure that along with the growth, that we have the right adequate amount of people that are housed. I know that that homeless problem has been ignored for some time by Westchester County. And that's something I would like to address and also create a program to get these people back on their feet. So housing will be a part of it. This is something that is necessary. Like last year, we had 3 people freeze to death in Yonkers. That's something that cannot be neglected anymore. This is something that we have to address. So with the growing city and the growing community, we have to make sure we have the right amount of adequate housing, but also help provide them the ways of getting to that housing. And, so they can secure and they don't end up back in the streets. We need to help them just as much as they help us come to this county and to make us grow.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nolan. Okay, so now this one goes to you, Mr. Nolan, and then you, Ms. Walter. Would you support legislation to offer reduced fare bus tickets to people at or below the poverty line who need supplemental assistance for public transportation, including going to work, childcare, and medical appointments? Mr. Nolan.
I would, because listen, the economy has been very slow, and people are trying to get back to work. They have to provide health care to themselves and to their children. We need to make sure that we can help them get to that point. COVID did quite a number on a lot of people's homes and personal life. And if that's what it takes, especially with seniors are a big thing. If it helps them get to the doctor's appointments and, to get food and, whatever is necessary, that is something we should look into. We should look into reallocating money with the Inspector General's position I would like to create to make sure that those funds are there.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Walter?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I think that, one of the things that Mayor Spano had asked was to have free bus tickets for students at the community college in Yonkers, because he needs that people can get easily to their classes. I do think the Beeline bus can offer something like a reduced fare for economically challenged people. I think that's something that we would have to work on with the Department of Social Services to make sure that, a person in one household is, the correct person to get that reduced fare. But certainly for students, for seniors, for people who are really trying to get back on their feet, transportation is a huge issue. And we really do need to look at the entire economy and make sure that people are able to move around freely in this county. I know during COVID, there were free buses because they were doing, safety considerations for the bus drivers and for people who are riding the bus. COVID has really changed the way that we're looking at systems like buses and getting people around. And we really want to put all the experts together to find solutions to make sure that our economy comes back as strong as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here's the next question, and it's going to start with you, Ms. Walter. What is your position on mandatory COVID vaccinations and also masking?
So I think that what we've seen is a real embracing of the vaccine in Westchester County. People here are educated, they are really eager to get back to work, and we really want people to feel safe when they go to work. They want to go to a restaurant or a concert. These are things that it's almost hard to remember how our lives were so different before this pandemic. We've got over 700,000 Americans dead, and we've got new variants coming. We're not sure if they're going to be, problem in the fall and the winter of this year. But what we need is to have collective understanding that community health is the basis for our economy. And when we have these voices, I was thinking about the masking, the people that are anti-masking. It's like saying, when you break your leg, you're very, very upset that you have to use crutches. We are really going to be healing and coming back, but these masks are part of it, and the mandates are part of it. We want to make sure our economy can be built on community health and not on these kind of, voices of quote unquote freedom. There's freedom from and freedom to. You want freedom to do something, but you also want to make sure that your freedom is not impinging on other people's health or safety. And that's why I'm a proponent of them. Obviously, if you stay at home, you don't need a mandate, but if you are in the public eye, you should be vaccinated.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Nolan.
Well, I am a survivor of COVID myself. I beat it, luckily. And it's a shame how some of this has become more political than anything. Instead of 600 people, over 600,000 people losing their lives. This is something that's very serious. Like I said, I am a survivor myself. I feel that there should not, everybody that wants to get vaccinated, it should be optional. If the doctor green lights you to get it, if your health is of age or not of age, of right doing to get the vaccine. But you know what, we should continue to wear the mask and work together to continue safety, public distancing, safe distancing, and also wearing the mask when needed, sanitizing. I get tested on the regular now. I get tested and I have the antibodies. And you know what, when my doctor gives me the green light, then I'll be sure to move forward. But I will continue to wear my mask as everybody recommends. And like I said, if the doctor green lights people with underlying conditions to go get it, then they should go. It should be optional, but the mask should be worn when needed. Sanitizer is available. I work in the school district. I know how important it is to make sure that these kids come to a safe environment. The teachers are there teaching. We sanitize the buildings completely. And like I said, it's crazy how this whole thing has begun. But you know what? Together we're fighting, and we're going to fight together. And that's how I feel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nolan. Okay, the next question is for you, Mr. Nolan.
Okay.
And then you, Ms. Walter. How can Westchester County be a better partner with local municipalities?
Well, we should look to partner up with each other, like a number of plans, like such for parks, programs for kids, seniors, homeless. These are things that, what we can eagerly create together and help many people together. It's just not Yonkers residents, it's just not this resident, it's we're Westchester residents. This together, like for example, I know they're working together, the city of Yonkers and Westchester, on a park on the south side of Yonkers. That's great. These are things that we need to continue. Like the homeless problem. The homeless problem has been a big problem. It's been neglected for years now. Everybody's pointing the fingers at each other. But the one thing that some people would neglect to issue or even say is that it's a quality of life issue. We need to come together with local municipalities and help protect these people and put them back in shelter, provide opportunities for them to get them back on their feet. These are partnerships they're huge, and they help go a long way. It's been proven, and when I'm elected, I will continue to make sure that partnerships are created.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Walter?
So what's really been interesting about this job is how, it's a patchwork really of responsibilities and territories and roads. And, navigating that has been extremely interesting and also rewarding when I'm able to help my constituents. So for example, there's a co-op on Palmer Avenue that was complaining because a lot of people were beeping when they were sitting at the light because they didn't recognize that they could go right on red. So I advocated for a green light one of those arrows, green arrow. And it was amazing because the city spoke to the county and they had an engineer out and they had it done within about 3 weeks. So a lot of times, government does seem to take some time, but when you can get the right person in each level of government to work with the other level of government or the other part of the government, it's very satisfying. We also did an exit for exit 8, Vermont Terrace off the Bronx River Parkway. And we're still working on that, but we got a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit put in about 3 weeks. So, when you can work together with different levels of government, and that's just the city and the county, there's also the county and the state, the county and the federal government, it's when things work best. You've got to work for the people that live in the district, but you also need to work with the different levels of government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this one is going to start with you, Ms. Walter. Do you have any ideas about how to increase protections for victims of both labor and sex trafficking in our county? This is not a widely publicized issue, but it definitely exists throughout Westchester and New York State.
It's a great question. Mimi Roca, who's our new DA, has been one of the champions of, finding sex trafficking and, arresting those who are responsible for it. This is not as prominent an issue at the county level, but I am certainly working with partners at the Westchester Women's Agenda. They do a lot of work on domestic violence, and we are trying to support them in the work that they do. Nonprofit Westchester is also active in finding people who are experts in this and making sure that they have the support that they need. I know there are certain levels of training where people can be taught to find a sex trafficked victim. Many times they're in our midst, and make sure that they have the support that they need to escape wherever they're being held, or it's often labor theft and slavery. So I look to Mimi Roca for her leadership, and we do support these organizations, Westchester Women's Agenda, as well as Nonprofit Westchester. And I look forward to hearing more about this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nolan.
I feel that we should try and create a multi-level law enforcement task force that we should also propose to the DA and Attorney General's office to make sure that we provide more resources into this. This is something that is serious. People should not be used for pawns or passed off or sold at. This is a quality of life issue. We need to make sure we bring attention to this. We need to make sure that also that our local labor partners are aware of this to make sure that they can stop this at any front. But a multiple level law enforcement agency task force would help, because there's some efforts and qualifications to FBI or DEA or whoever it is, local level. Yonkers has a great law enforcement agency. These are things that could, as a team, we could stop this from happening. This should not be happening, and we need to stand tall against this, but we should advocate for the federal government to provide resources for this to stop happening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nolan. Okay, and then this one is going to start with you, Mr. Nolan.
Okay.
What do you think are the biggest environmental challenges facing Westchester County?
Well, right off the bat, there's a number of things that we need more solar panels. We could do solar panels on municipal buildings and police buildings and also the schools. That could help lower a lot of Con Edison rates. There's also a number of begrudging that needs to be done, like I said, not only just the infrastructure thing, but that's an environmental situation that we could help. It'll lower the amount of bacteria and water that's overriding the infrastructure. But there's a number of issues. I actually got qualified in 32 BJ when I was a doorman for environmental. We could do these things. We have large areas of grassland. We could provide solar panels there if it's cost effective to bring in more renewable energy. These are things that we have to look into.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Walter?
So, we have this incredible flooding that's been happening, Superstorm Sandy, there was a flood in 2007, Hurricane Henri, and now Hurricane Ida. And, they're coming faster and faster. We don't need climate deniers on the board. We don't need them in office. We want to make sure, 16 Democrats on this board, plus a conservative, just passed the climate emergency resolution that will bring us more in line with what we need to be doing to cut our carbon emissions and make sure that our government and is working with different levels of government in order to find solutions for the flooding that's happening. We're past climate action, we need climate resiliency, and that means making sure that our homes and businesses are protected from these floods. And it's not just flooding, it's also these wild storms. Last summer under Asais, we had to, I brought food to a local neighborhood that had been out of power for almost a week. People with oxygen tanks couldn't get out of their homes because a giant tree had been left, because there are so many places that Con Edison and other people had to fix. And so we really need to look at climate change, climate resilience, and having all of these Democrats saying, yes, this is our problem, has really helped us push this issue forward. And I'm sorry, but there's one party that doesn't believe in
Thank you very
climate
much,
science.
Ms.
I
Walter.
get a rebuttal on that?
Well, it's your turn to answer the question. No, yes, you get a rebuttal. Go ahead.
Okay, well, for instance, like Indian Point shutting down, I know that was before Legislator Walter's time, but as a last year, I remember her advocating and cheering for it to shut down. Indian Point was a huge natural producer, and we could have used that facility right now, especially with rolling brownouts. The rolling brownouts are now being caused because of the failure of what's the government's holding now, and it shut down, which is causing us rolling brownouts. Con Edison wants to replace that energy source, 2 kilowatts, with random Con Ed hubs in the area we can't afford.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Okay, here's the next question. And this is sort of in the same vein. So we're going to start with you, Ms. Walter. Many communities are using solar and wind energy to lower the cost of energy in public buildings. Would you support promoting and developing this in Westchester County? And if yes, how can this be funded? It's kind of
So there's a great program called Community Solar. If you go to Sustainable Westchester, like I did, you can sign up. Even if you can't put solar panels on your roof, you can buy solar energy through a community installation like they just put in Executive Boulevard. We need climate solutions like, heat pumps and solar installation, wind installation. We need to invest in this. We need a new infrastructure. And, the thing about nuclear is there's a lot of cleanup, and we now have a big amount of spent fuel rods that are very close to our city, and we have no energy from that plant. That was not shut down by me or by the county. It was shut down by the governor, and we need to rebuild green energy solutions that are going to sustain our planet going forward. And so we really need to look at all of these installations, solar, wind, heat pumps, and we need to do it together, because private developers and governments together can work on these solutions in order to have those energy solutions actually happen. And again, one party is still in denial.
Mr. Nolan?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Sure. Gotta get it. Okay. Many communities are using solar and wind energy to lower the cost of energy in public buildings. Would you support promoting and developing this in Westchester County? And if yes, how could it be funded?
I would support it because, like I said, I'm pretty sure the federal government would have no problem stepping in. They've made sure that they made it to a point to create an infrastructure deal that causes taxpayers to get hit in the pocket more. So, what we should put it to cost with wind turbines and whatever we could to replace energy. Because if not, we're going to continue to have rolling brownouts, and property taxes are going to skyrise here in Westchester once again. We need to make sure we put back into what Indian Point was shutting down. For the first time ever, the environmental impact study was passed. I mean, it was passed on. It wasn't even allowed to do, which nobody understood. And of course, it was before Legislator Walter's time. But this is something that's going to have a long line of effects now. So we have to find ways to all the municipal buildings and the schools, because like I said, I work in the school district. We have 44 schools here in Yonkers. If we can try and create some of the energy coming from, well, into the schools with solar panels, it will help go a long way. There's a lot of energy that could be replaced and could be used, and we have to find the right way to use it. So I would definitely be an advocate to make sure that instead of the taxpayers picking up the end of the bill, that we can advocate for the federal government to provide the funds.
Okay, thank you. This is the last question that a prepared question that I have. And it's going to start with you, Mr. Nolan, and then we'll go to our closing statements. Interesting question. What's the major difference between you and your opponent?
I'm actually seen in the community. You know, I show up. I've been showing up for the last 6 years now. I've shown up since my brother's death. That has not deterred me from doing what I had to do in the community, and I will continue to show up. Last year alone, when many elected officials were missing, I was out in the community as a frontline worker and in the community. I did 60 food and PPE drives where we served everybody. I will make sure to do what's right and what's needed for the businesses. I would not look to shut down businesses and protest them during the worst economic time of our lifetime. This is something that I am near and dear to the heart, like public safety. Public safety is being ignored. Last week or 2 weeks ago at the Home Field Association, we had a police officer tell us 6% crime was rising. There's been a number of situations in the district that have been ignored, and I'm not going to ignore it anymore. This is something that I want to work for the residents of Yonkers and Bronxville, Westchester. I'm not going to be about the politics. I'm going to be about the public service, like I have been, on how I'm going to continue to be. This is something I am invested in, and I am a labor union member, and I'm going to continue to be a labor union member. Even when I'm elected, I will have no problem going to the office and doing what's right for the residents, and then going to my job and serving the children of Yonkers Public Schools. This is where my home. This is where I'm going to continue to live. This is where I'm going to continue to be, and I'm going to raise a family, and I'm going to be a reason why this becomes a better district for everybody, including myself and everybody I know.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Ms. Walter?
I'm not sure if this is a rebuttal or an actual answer to the question.
Good answer.
You know, I've been attacked by my opponent all summer. You know, the idea that I was not visible during COVID is kind of, you know, ridiculous on its face, because I did my job, which is close to 100% attendance at my meetings. I was everywhere I could be safely. And when one legislator had been doing a lot of these giveaways, he got COVID, and then the entire 9th and 8th floor was shut down. We work with seniors, we work with people who are vulnerable, and to say if you're living at home, you know, with your folks and not putting anybody at risk, that you can be out giving out blankets from another charity and saying that's your great contribution, you know, that isn't the same as saying that we have to be careful just of our coworkers, and there was a shutdown. So I'm not sure what, you know, what other attacks he's kind of rolled into that last answer, but you know, what matters is keeping people safe in COVID, getting vaccinated, not knocking on doors when you're unvaccinated. Thank you.
Can I have a rebuttal?
You have one more rebuttal, Mr. Nolan.
Well, you know, if you go back on the social media platforms of Ms. Walter, you can look that she's gone missing that time. There's been times where she'll be going to an event, and then once her name is recognized, she's gone. You know, this is a reoccurrence. Of course, it's easy to sign into Zoom 100 times when you're at your home and on your computer. But I have been involved in the community. And yes, I was told by my doctor, I have the antibodies, but the antibodies are a lot stronger defense compared to the vaccine. When I am given the green light, then I will go get the vaccine. But I'm going to take it to
Thank
the
you.
medical consultant or my doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Okay.
I'd like
so
a
now-
rebuttal to that. Is that okay?
Yeah, you can have a rebuttal, sure.
You know, I think that, you know, accusing somebody of signing in and then leaving, you know, these are just smear tactics that really speak to desperation. And I think, you know, the work that I've done on the board, I'm proud of. And I think that when you work with people on the board, you do not go out and put them at risk in the middle of a pandemic. And so, you know, great for you for handing food out, but the better thing to do for nurses who have endorsed me, as well as 1199 SEIU, is to not send them more patients.
Thank you, Ms. Walter. Okay, so now it's time for our closing statements. And Ms. Walter, you have the opening closing statement.
So thank you. It's hard to be attacked and to be, the target of, innuendo and a lot of smearing that my opponent has done. There's a sour note to what he talks about and how terrible things are. I was at the same meeting that he was, and Lieutenant Sika said that although crime had been up in the first police precinct at 6% compared to 2019, because in 2020 people were mostly at home, things are flat or down. And he got up and said exactly the opposite, which is that, crime is up. I think understanding statistics is important. Understanding budgets is important. I've been on a community board, the library board. We had a $1.4 million budget. Now it's a $2.1 billion budget. And these are the skills that people need who are going to be legislators. Skills like reading a budget and understanding legislation, whether this is a good law that can be enforced. And, to attack me for not being around during a pandemic, I think is pretty low and pretty it's dishonorable from my opponent. I think we really want to make sure that people recognize what a beautiful county we live in and what a wonderful place it is, how our parks are being taken care of. The previous county executive, who my opponent actually has campaigned for, really did a bad number on our
Thank you, Ms. Walter.
Thank
you
you
very much. Okay, Mr. Nolan, you have a minute and a half for your closing statement.
It's definitely not a smear campaign when it's actually the truth. They just like how 8,500 nurses and healthcare workers were laid off, and co-chair the labor board, who also has the endorsements, didn't release a single statement or even try to fight for their jobs in the hospitals. These are things that when you say crime is down, that's not necessarily true, because you don't live on this side of the district. I have been subjected to gun violence. And you know what? There's people in your district that have been subjected to gun violence, which has been ignored, including that you're the gun safety advocate. These are things that we can no longer ignore. My opponent has the opportunity to show up to a Zoom meeting. That's all fine and done. But like I said, if you look back on our search history on social media, there's been a number of times where, you know what? She was missing. She was missing and she was nowhere to be found. I was a frontline worker. I'm continuing to be a frontline worker. I test negative every single time I have to go get tested. I wear a mask every time I go walking. Turning this vaccine thing and COVID into a political stunt because you have nothing else to ride on, making my medical history the only record you have to go on because you have no record of your own, is pretty sad. You know what? You talked about last time being on the soapbox. Maybe if you were on the soapbox this time, you could actually have work to be done. You could accomplish things. But this is why I'm here. Labor needs a voice. Seniors need a voice. District 15 needs a voice. And when I am elected on November 2nd, I will continue to be a voice. I will continue knocking. I'm not just going to show up to events and take selfies and just walk out.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nolan. Wow, I guess that was interesting. Okay, so that wraps up the Westchester County Legislative Forum. Thank you both for all of your participation. It's not easy to be in public service or to run for public service. So all of you folks at home, please thank these candidates for agreeing to try to serve or serving your community. Okay, we're going to take a short break while we prepare for our second forum.
Yes.
Thank you, both of you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank
you. It's 7:55. We will take a break until 8 o'clock. We will resume exactly at 8 o'clock with our candidates. And at this point, I would like to add something. I would like to acknowledge and give our gratitude for the support of Armour Villa and the neighborhood, the associations of East Yonkers. They have been our partners in doing candidates forums for many years, going back to, and I hope going again to Sarah Lawrence when the forums were at Sarah Lawrence. So we are very appreciative and acknowledge their support. So we will pause now and we will return at 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock and I'd like to resume, but we need our candidate, Lakeisha. Hello. All right, we're going to resume our forum for Yonkers City Council President. And again, I will turn the program over to our moderator, John Hessel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Forum for the Yonkers City Council President. So we collected the questions already from the audience by email, electronic form. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. They also have 1.5 minutes for their opening statements, and they will have 1.5 minutes for their closing statements. We flipped a coin for the order of the questions in the opening and closing statements. Each candidate has 2 30-second rebuttals that they can use during the forum. There is no rebuttal for an opening or closing statement. And I think we're ready to go. So let me introduce the candidates for the Yonkers City Council President, Lakeisha Collins Bellamy and Mr. Ron Matten. And as the coin flip went, Mr. Matten, you are going to open the opening statements and you have 1.5 minutes. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. And thank you for hosting this forum and those who are listening. So my name is Ron Matten. I want to be your next City Council President. I have 30 years experience within finance and operations. I am currently the Associate Vice President for Facilities and Capital Planning at New York Medical College in Valhalla. So my expertise is in planning and in finance. And I want to take that expertise and apply it to Yonkers. I've been a resident of Yonkers for many years. Currently live in Colonial Heights with my wife, and pardon me. I've been watching Yonkers for a few years now, and I'm really concerned with the finances. Our debt has grown by 10% over the last 20 years, and our debt service is $80 million per year right now. And I don't think we can sustain that. We've left our schools behind, and I believe that I have the expertise to fix that. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Collins Bellamy, you have 1.5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to be here with you all virtually tonight. My name is Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, and I am the Democratic and Working Family Party's endorsed candidate for Yonkers City Council President. I am an attorney and lifelong resident of the city of Yonkers. I am the American dream personified. I am the definition of a Yonkers success story. Being born to teenage parents, I grew up in Cottage Place Gardens public housing project. Years later, I ended up working for the Housing Authority, and my first assignment was at Cottage Place Gardens. It was some sort of a homecoming for me. While working at the Housing Authority, I decided to go to law school while raising my son as a single mom and working full-time and eventually a full-time law school student. As you can see, I'm no stranger to adversity. But enough about me. Here's why that should matter to you and why I'm running for office. On the heels of a historic election year and the inauguration, the nation and Yonkers are dawning on a new day. My plan is to restore and reunify the community and its stakeholders. Let's put the community back in policing and back into education. My goal is to unite colleagues in government, even across the aisle. After 4 years of divisiveness, we as a country, as a city, and as a party need healing and unity. I know firsthand about the needs for affordable housing in the city of Yonkers.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question is we're gonna start with you, Mr. Matten. I'm sorry, we're gonna start with you, Ms. Collins Bellamy. What in your background and what unique qualities and expertise do you hold that make you suited for the office of Yonkers City Council President?
Absolutely. As I previously mentioned, I'm an attorney, so I am trained to study the law, to understand it, comprehend it, and to implement it. I understand the struggles of being a mother trying to raise a child while putting yourself through school and trying to better your life and better your child's life. My experience as a school board trustee, as an attorney with the Housing Authority, and as a board member for the Yonkers Police Reform Committee has given me the knowledge and experience to serve the residents of the city of Yonkers as the next city council president.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Matten? Unmute your microphone.
Yes,
There you
that's
go.
that's the catchphrase for 2020, 2021. As I previously stated, I've spent 30 years writing policy. Writing policy is much like writing legislation. It has outcomes, and I look to the outcomes for that policy. There's two parts to being the Yonkers City Council president. One is you are the citywide ombudsman, and two, you are writing policy and understanding what that policy brings to the city. I've worked for the town of Greenwich, which I was a director of facilities for Greenwich Public Schools. And I also held a school business administrator's license in the state of Connecticut. So I understand what the decisions that Yonkers makes inflicts on students and what that does to the community and taxpayers. So using my experience, I believe I'm the best candidate. I wrote the COVID return policy for Hunter College. And I've lived through the COVID, which has devastated our communities, particularly our poorer communities. So with those competencies and my experience, as well as my vision for Yonkers, I believe I would be your best candidate for Yonkers City Council president.
Okay, thank you. Now this one will start with you, Mr. Matten. What do you see as the role of the Yonkers City Council president, and how does it differ from being a council member?
Well, as I said, you're the first off, you're the citywide ombudsman. So you're not just dealing with particular districts. You have to look to your vision for the entire city. And you have to, from Buena Vista to Bronx River Road, you've got to make decisions that impact people. Next, you're the leader of the council. You have to bring those diverse members together who are representing different parts of the city. Mike Breen's concerns will be very different than Tasha Diaz's concerns, but it's important to try to find the unifying factor. And then you have to have a relationship with the mayor's office in order to hold that legislation accountable or hold the executive branch accountable where you feel they're not performing or legislating in the best interest of the city of Yonkers. So you're that check on the executive branch. That doesn't mean you can't partner with the executive branch, but you are the check on the executive branch. So again, I believe that you've got to look to what the legislation will deliver at the end, and not just make a political decision in putting legislation forward. And those are the roles of the Yonkers City Council president as compared to a regular council member.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matten. Ms. Collins-Bellamy.
Yes. So as city council president, I would be just one vote on the council. But the city council president is that leadership role that works with the city to continue to grow and serve all residents of the city citywide, as opposed to representing their elected district. The role of city council is one of leadership instead of being an obstructionist and dividing like we've seen in the last 4 years. The city council president should bring all parties together to work for the benefit of the city. Of course, the technical answer is passing legislation and voting to approve or reject the mayor's budget, but they also work with planning, with CDBG monies, supporting agencies such as West Hab. So it's about bringing the community together and serving the residents of the city of Yonkers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this one is going to go to you, Ms. Collins-Bellamy. How can the role of city council president be made more effective within the context of the strong mayor government?
So the city council can be more effective by working together as a city council, united, although we only have one vote. One of our important roles is the budget process, which is a key role in any municipal government, city services and school functions. The city council president also plays an important role in land use and development in the city of Yonkers. And it's ensuring that legislation gets passed, working with the administration, and getting the job done for the city of Yonkers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Matten?
So again, as I stated before, the city council is a check on the mayor, even though we do have a strong mayor government. The council has subpoena power. When we have capital projects, I think it's important to appear in front of the council and address how the capital project went, where we saved money, what went well, and what didn't go well. And this way we have a little bit of a pattern when we're further doing capital projects. We hold the budget. There are budget hearings. If we don't like the budget, and again, as Ms. Collins-Bellamy said, it's one vote, but you build with those other council members in order to look at what the budget represents. It's a policy document, and make sure that you can rally the council if you do not agree with the mayor's budget. I want to ensure that we have a plan of community development. So we do approve construction and development, and I want to make sure that we're not developing ad hoc, and we're bringing community groups into. As Yonkers City Council President, I vow to go from community to community, having public meetings. So I'm not getting my information from the other council members. I would be getting my information from the community unfiltered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matten. And this one is going to start with you, Mr. Matten. If elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
Well, again, we currently do an audit, but that's not an audit that looks at the quality of our spending. That's just an audit that looks at whether our spending and accounting is accurate. I'd like to know the quality of our spending. Are we getting the most for our dollar as we put forward? Remember, government, it's not Yonkers money, it's the Yonkers taxpayer money. So we have to ensure that it's being stretched as far as it can be, because there's so little of it. I want to make sure that we get our fair share from Albany. We're not getting our fair share from Albany now. And there's been recent legislation passed, but what about prior years where we're owed money for school money? I want to have a better handle on the school board. The school board acts not always in the best interest of Yonkers. Currently, we have the school board negotiated a new contract for the superintendent 3 years prior to it being completed at a cost of $7,000 more to the taxpayer. We give a stipend to the school board chair, which is unheard of in a volunteer position, $50,000 a year. So I think we really have to hold the school board accountable as well as the city for spending taxpayer money. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matten. Ms. Bellamy, Collins-Bellamy?
Yes, first I'll say the stipend for the president is $15,000, not 50. But how I would like to get the city back on a firmer financial footing, although we just received $20,000 from New York State prior to COVID, we've also been getting in our tax money even during COVID in a timely manner. So we have a rainy day fund, but what I would like to do, because each year we never know how much we're going to receive from Albany, I would be working with our New York State delegation to change, for example, Yonkers education formula to ensure that we get the money that Yonkers deserves. Although we're in a wealthy county, Yonkers is a poor district, and the formula should be changed to ensure that we receive money, for example, based on who receives free lunch from the city, and therefore we would receive more funding from the city, from the New York State. I commend our state senators who's began working to change the formulas, Shelley Mayer and Nader Sage, and our new governor who has committed to working with giving more funding for the school districts, because that is where half of the city budget goes each year.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Collins. So this one goes to you, Ms. Collins-Bellamy. What is your position on mandatory COVID vaccinations and masks?
I follow the CDC guidelines. I think that mandatory vaccination, depending on the job field of the person, Either mandatory vaccination or weekly testing should be required to keep your family and yourself safe, as well as the people that you come in constant contact with. Masking should always be adhered to unless you are in your home facility with your family. But I do support masking and vaccinations to make sure that we are safe and to bring New York State and Yonkers out of the pandemic safely.
Okay,
you.
thank you. Mr. Madden.
So I'm a proponent of vaccination. I'm triple vaccinated myself. I work in the healthcare field. However, it's a personal choice. I don't think we can mandate vaccines. I think we have to urge people to be vaccinated. I think it is also a concern of mine when people's jobs are held in hostage in order to be vaccinated. In order to work, you need to be vaccinated. I understand being in a healthcare educational environment that it is important to be vaccinated. The science shows that masks do mitigate some of the transmission. And again, we do not need to be masked outdoors. The science has shown that. And if you're in close contact within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, then you should be masked. However, that's a policy decision for companies and institutions to make, not for the government to make at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and now the next question is starting with you, Mr. Madden. How do you balance respect for diverse elements of our community with respect for law enforcement?
So I'm a big proponent of community policing. It's worked well in New York City. We also need to ensure that our communities are involved with the police and with police boards. Yonkers is very good in having a community monthly community meeting at the precincts where community members can attend and understand what's happening in their community. We also have to build outreach. I think we need a more diverse police force, and I think we can do that through our schools. If our schools were to have a police curriculum as part of their program, they can also do an internship with young people in high school to work within the police station and build the bridges between the community and the police department. So I think we have a very good police force. I think we can do a little better in getting those community policing out, getting the car door away from, as the barrier between the community and the police, and have more involvement within community organizations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Madden. Ms. Collins-Bellamy.
Yes, I'll start off by saying the Yonkers Police already has a junior cadet program where young adults in high school are able to do exactly what Mr. Madden is recommending take place. That is already a program that is in place. I am fortunate enough to have received the support and endorsement of both the Yonkers PBA and the Yonkers Captains, Lieutenants, and Sergeants Association. And I've also been on the Police Reform Board. I advocated for having a more diverse population. I work actively with Yonkers Guardians and other programs to recruit minorities to apply. And we've sponsored minorities to apply for the test that just occurred last month. I intend to work with police to give them the resources they need to keep our streets safe, but we also need to build a rapport with the community. Oftentimes you see in urban communities that Black and brown people have fear of police. So we need to ensure that the police are out in the communities, meeting the people so that they build a rapport and understand that the police are here to help and serve and protect us and not to harm us. Thankfully, Yonkers has not had a George Floyd incident, and we want to keep it that way. I've served as a member of the Police Reform Committee, which has made our police department even better. We can do more training, diversity training, making sure that implicit biases are recognized and that the police department stays up to code and keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Collins-Bellamy. Okay, now this one is going to go to you, Ms. Collins-Bellamy. If elected, what would you do to ensure that developers pay their fair share of taxes and that employment opportunities in construction are available to local residents?
Okay, so I support jobs and housing going to Yonkers residents first. So if I'm elected, I would work to try to find a program that would give preferences to residents of the city of Yonkers, sort of like what the Housing Authority does for residents first and disabled veterans, et cetera. When it comes to affordable housing, I know we've had some back and forth about the need for affordable housing and what the IDA does as far as pilots, payments in lieu of taxes. When we say we want more affordable housing, essentially we incentivize developers to come here. And when we look at the reports that have come out about affordable housing, presently we give a 35% incentive, but that means the developer still pays 65% of taxes here in the city of Yonkers. I know that the IDA has auditors, third-party auditors that ensure that the incentives that they offer are properly suited for the projects that are being developed here in Yonkers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Matten.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah. If elected, what would you do to ensure that developers pay their fair share of taxes and that employment opportunities in construction are available to local residents?
Okay, well, first off, I believe that we need to have project labor agreements. We're not hiring union labor along with our construction projects, and I think that's a travesty, considering that Yonkers government, it's a union town. When I build construction projects I use DASNY money, which is also borrowed, and I'm required to have a project labor agreement where I'm using union labor. We could build into that where the union can pick up some local jobs within here, within Yonkers. Also, within the affordable housing piece, in order to provide affordable housing, the reports have shown that it will require the payments in lieu of taxes will be too high, and affordable housing will not get developed in Yonkers. Currently, I believe there are 10% in White Plains, and we will wind up losing out opportunities for development and get no housing here. I'd like to see that we take the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money, raise that up in order to have developers who build affordable housing only, and make sure that that gets built instead of raising up to 20% the requirements.
Okay, so this next question is very similar to the question that you just had. So some of this will be covered again. What is your position on the need, and this is to you, Mr. Matten, first. What is your position on the need for more affordable housing in Yonkers? Do you support increasing the 10% set-aside requirement in new development? And if so, to what level would you increase it?
Well, I do support increasing the 10% set-aside level. I don't support increasing it to 20%. I believe it was lazy legislation to say we're going to put this all on the developers to come up with affordable housing. I think we have to look at some of the Yonkers owned properties that are underdeveloped or not developed and see what we can do to find developers for that affordable housing. As I said, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is a place that we can build out. We can make those rates a little higher on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for those developers who choose not to include affordable housing within their development. As I also said before, we need a plan of community development. Part of the reason we do not have affordable housing or enough affordable housing stock, areas like White Plains and New Rochelle built out their areas that had affordable housing. Those people came to Yonkers. Additionally, we started building out the waterfront and we displaced people who needed affordable housing. And lack of planning caused our affordable housing crisis. Benjamin Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And that's exactly what we're doing with our current development within Yonkers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Collins-Bellamy?
I wholeheartedly support increasing the 10% set aside. As a single mother raising my child, I know what it meant to have a job that pays you more, therefore that you're not eligible for housing like public housing and low-income housing. There is a difference between low-income housing and affordable housing. So I was not able to move into low-income housing because I made too much, but I couldn't afford to pay regular rents here in the city of Yonkers. When I'm elected, I will work with the council as well as the administration to come up with a plan to ensure that we increase the percentage affordable housing here in Yonkers. White Plains is currently at 12%, not 10, so they are higher than the city of Yonkers. We need to come up with a plan that works, and it just doesn't just look one way. We need affordable home ownership as well as rentals. We need more senior housing, and therefore I will be working to increase it, but it will be a collaborative effort with the entire council.
Okay, thank you. I have a question here. And this one is going to start with you, Ms. Collins-Bellamy. It's a very short question. It's not detailed. What is your position on Airbnbs in Yonkers?
So I met with some homeowners association and they mentioned that Airbnbs had come up and that there were some issues with like people renting them out and partying. That's unfortunate. We know that Airbnbs can be profitable for homeowners. However, we need to ensure that we have strict policies in place and hold those homeowners accountable if they are in fact Airbnbs in the city. Maybe that's something that we can put to the voters to decide whether or not that's what they want to have. But as homeowners, I know they have a heavy burden, whether it's paying taxes, et cetera. So they may want the additional income. I'm not opposed to it, but we definitely need to have a policy and procedure in place to ensure that our neighborhoods do not have a decreased quality of living in the areas.
Thank you. Mr. Matten.
So I believe Airbnbs can be a problem for the community. I was at a police council meeting a few months ago, and there's a house in that precinct that many people were complaining about. There were cars outside, and I believe the house may have been rented for parties. Again, there are problems with renting out to transient people overnight. You don't know who your neighbors are. You don't know who's coming in. And we didn't purchase homes in Yonkers to live next to a hotel. Hotels have certain regulations and laws which ensure they're safe. And I think when you have an Airbnb, it's equivalent to an illegal apartment. My opponent has come out in favor of illegal apartments in Yonkers as a way of raising affordable housing. And so I am not in favor of Airbnbs in Yonkers. I believe it diminishes the community.
Okay.
Can I have a rebuttal,
Thank you.
please?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I want to clarify a point that my opponent has sent out mailers and made posts on Facebook about. That is not true. What I said, if you watch the entire Yonkers Voice video, is that there are homeowners who have basement spaces and that they may want to use them for apartments, but they are not up to code. So that we as a city council could enact an amnesty period, the same way we do with gun buybacks, where there's a period where there is no penalty, to ensure that the homeowners bring those houses up to code and that they are no longer illegal, not to keep the apartment illegal. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I rebut the rebuttal? May I rebut the rebuttal?
No, we don't rebut rebuttals, but you have the, you get the next answer. So many communities worldwide, this starts with you, Mr. Matten. Many communities worldwide are using both solar and wind energy to lower the cost of energy in public buildings. Would you support promoting and developing this in Yonkers? And if yes, how can this be funded? Okay, Mr. Matten, go right ahead.
I'm going to finish the last question for a few seconds. And basically, granting amnesty to an illegal apartment still has the same problem of having that overdevelopment within the area, loss of parking, and too many cars in an area that was not designed for it. As far as solar and wind, I'm in support of that, and it really depends upon how the contract is structured. So currently, I'm managing an energy performance contract, an EPC, and if you can structure those solar panels or wind is not as good as solar for residential areas because of some of the noise that windmills may create. But solar panels certainly, and we can certainly, as candidate Nolan had stated, look towards our current infrastructure within the city to add some solar panels to roofs, providing our roofs are built out properly. Also, parking lot canopies can be another place that we can add solar panels. However, we need to look at the way it's structured. Usually these deals are structured where you don't have any upfront money, and a course of between 7 and 12 years would be a proper deal for the city of Yonkers. Similar to what Mayor Spano did with the streetlights on a lease agreement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matten. Ms. Collins Bellamy?
I guess that's what privilege looks like. We assume that people that rent apartments have cars. People that move into these apartments is because they can't afford it. So assuming that they'll have cars and take up parking in these private neighborhoods is just that, an assumption. With the solar panels and wind energy, I've been doing that already with the Municipal Housing Authority. We actually, our new project, which is the Lamora project coming up with Longfellow is actually passive energy, passive house standards, which is the lowest energy footprint that you can have. The Housing Authority has been working with agencies that have been mentioned by Legislator Walter with community solar and sustainable Westchester to ensure that we have a clean environment. So this is a top priority and something that I'm already working on in my present capacity at the Housing Authority.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is the last question that I have, and it's going to start with you, Ms. Collins Bellamy. What is the major difference between you and your opponent?
Coming into this general election, I was looking forward to a clean race after a tumultuous primary election. We had an understanding that it would be just that, but unfortunately, it has become mudslinging and lies. As a city, as a state, as a country, we've just witnessed the last 4 years, and it seems that my opponent has taken some plays out of the Trump handbook with the tactics that he goes through with demonstrating and perpetuating false narratives when it comes to this candidacy. I will focus on the issues and focus on getting the job done for the city of Yonkers, rolling up the sleeves and doing the job of the Yonkers City Council president, not that of the mayor, not that of any other elected official, getting the job done for the residents of Yonkers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Matten.
So my opponent has appeared on Yonkers Voice and you can look that on Facebook, and she has advocated for higher taxes. Her statement was that Yonkers residents, we must get more money from Yonkers residents, combined with state and federal. She has also come out, as I said before, in favor of illegal apartments, giving amnesty to landlords to bring illegal apartments up to code, which still provides the same problems in overcrowded neighborhoods. Then she's gone to other events and she's backtracked on that, and she's given a different policy. I have my policy in place. My opponent is still trying to figure out her policy. That's the difference. I'm ready to start on day one, and my opponent is still trying to figure out what she stands for.
Can I have a rebuttal, please?
Are you finished, Mr. Matten?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yes, this is your last rebuttal.
Absolutely. So there has not been a backtrack, nor has there been a written policy that my opponent has ever expressed. I'm used to having ideas that are outside of the box and being criticized by small-minded others who can't see that it's a great idea that will work. As a homeowner who complains of high taxes, why not have additional income when you have the space in your home to afford another resident of Yonkers the opportunity to live in your space? Once I'm elected, I will work to ensure that all the kinks are worked out and that this is something that we can do here in the city of Yonkers. I've said what I've stood for. If you go back and watch the video,
Thank you, Ms.
Collins
Bellamy. Thank you. Okay, so that's all the questions that I have. You guys actually went through them very quickly. So we have now time for closing statements, and we're in the same order. So Mr. Matten, you get the opening closing statement.
Thank you. So as I stated earlier, I'm ready to start on day one. I've written policy, which is much like writing laws. I look at the outcome. I've got my bachelor's in finance, my master's in public administration. I'm a product of Sacred Heart, graduated Sacred Heart High School here in Yonkers. I grew up in Valentine Lane. I believe we all wind up with a compelling story. I do not come from privilege. My father had a stroke at 46. My mother cared for us by cleaning homes. So there's no privilege in my background. As far as zoning and Airbnbs, Yonkers already has zoning laws. And that's how we decide where we have one-family homes, and that's how we decide we have two-family homes. I'm not going to be involved in the political pay for play that is currently going on at the Housing Authority, where they've hired a son of a chief fundraiser for Miss Collins Bellamy to work within the law department. Miss Collins Bellamy is out campaigning, and they've had to hire 2 attorneys to cover for her at this point, Brendan McGrath and another, the son of one of her chief fundraisers. So thank you.
Okay, Ms. Collins Bellamy, you have the final closing statement.
Absolutely. Again, my opponent is not focused on the issue and more focused on slinging mud. He's speaking of Brendan McGrath, who came in January before I even announced that I was running, and was hired before I announced that I was running. So no one came to do my job. I work for the Housing Authority. I get the job done, whether I am in office or not. However, I do work 8:30 to 4:30 for the Housing Authority, but I'm here to do the job as a city council president. I will work to ensure that the residents have full benefits, whether it's affordable housing, a quality education, or public safety issues being addressed by the city council president. It is my role and responsibility to work together with the entire council and the administration to get the job done. And unfortunately, my opponent hasn't been able to come up with a plan to discuss how that would be done, other than talking about what I am not doing, and he has no idea. So I hope that all of you have heard my platform and will come out, and early voting is next Saturday, and that you will all come out and vote. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. That wraps up the Yonkers City Council President Forum. You have to thank the people that are running, because it's not an easy job to run for office or be in office, and public service is not really as easy as it seems. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and listening to this forum. This forum is going to be available for subsequent viewing through Election Day, which is Tuesday, November 2nd, and it will be on YouTube, and you can access the YouTube's language interpretation service to hear the forum in Spanish and other languages, and the link to view the forum will be on the Rivertowns League of Women's Voters website at www.lwv-rivertowns.org. There are 5 ballot propositions on the ballot this year, and for more information about them, go to vote411.org. And don't forget, early voting starts October 23rd. Thank you both very much, and thank you everybody in the region of Yonkers. Happy voting.
Thank you, John. Thank you, League of Women Voters. Thank you.